Hey guys, it's Randy here, working on my brother-in-law Kirk's 2002 Jeep Liberty, 4-wheel drive, 3.7 V6. The power steering rack and pinion, the end seals were leaking on it. And the Chilton's book says to remove the whole front axle assembly. And I watched another video and it showed taking a lot of suspension components off of the right side to get it out. But we kind of looked at it and it wasn't too bad really. I'm going to show you how we got it out of there, and you're going to thank me for making this video if you ever have to do this job, because it could have been a nightmare. Let's start on top here. There's just a few things you need to take off the top. First of all, take your seat belt and run it through the steering wheel like that, because you're going to have the steering shaft uncoupled. And you don't want to accidentally turn that steering wheel too far, and you could damage the clock spring in it. And then, let me get my flashlight. The steering shaft that you need to unhook is right here, down there on the bottom right here, that hole right there. There's a pinch bolt that goes through that hole. It's a 13mm socket, and it faces almost straight forward when the rack is installed. So kind of where my flashlight is, if you can see that. You can reach in there with like a 6-inch extension and a ratchet, get that bolt out. And then this coupler will slide right off of the top of the rack and pinion. I'll show you that in a minute. But slide it up, get it off of there. And then here's the rack and pinion mounting bolts are right there. Usually takes one guy on the bottom, one guy on the top to hold the wrench, but you can get your hand through there and hold the wrench yourself. So that's where that is. And then this hose with the blue tape, that goes down to the differential. That's your breather hose. So you need to remove that, and we just got it up here out of the way. So that's really all you need to do on the top. Like I said, it's the information said to remove the whole front axle, and we got it out of there without doing that. Here's the old rack and pinion. Of course, you need to take the tie rod ends off. You might have to have a puller. We popped these out with an air hammer, and they come out fairly easy. Of course, this is laying on its side. It usually sets like this. And this is where that steering shaft coupler went that I just showed you. And it really can only go on one direction, because there is a slot for the bolt. So when you go back together, just make sure you get that coupler on there and that bolt through the slot. You've got two lines right here. I'll show you those in a minute. Remove those. These tubes you can just leave in place. Here's where your mounting is. You might want to get new bushings. And then you'll probably have to, we took a bunch of measurements, like total length from center of the tie rod to the other one, wrote it down. Of course, this is your toe-in adjustment right here. So we took some measurements. We're going to try to get the new one as close as we can. You still might have to have an alignment done, or your steering wheel might be crooked when you're done also. Let me show you what we did to get that out of there. It was a little bit of a booger, but not too bad. Here's your whole axle assembly, which to get the axles out, this suspension would have to partially come apart on both sides. There's your axle tube, there's your differential. Same on the other side, there's your axle. And first of all, we took the oil filter off to give us some clearance. So remove it, and then there's a plastic trough, drain trough under the oil filter. You'll see there's a bolt that bolts right to there that holds that trough on. It's a 13mm socket for that. And then kind of over on the driver's side, you'll see if there's a 10mm bolt. Get that plastic trough out of there. And then here's your two lines that hook up right there. These are the fittings. One's larger than the other, so you can't get them mixed up. I believe the larger one goes on the top port of the steering rack, and there's an O-ring on them, so you need to replace the O-rings on those. And you can reach up through this area right here to get to those hoses. They're a 19mm wrench. Have got a short stubby wrench that worked real well to get up in there. And your mounting bolts for the rack are right here underneath. I think that's a 24mm socket if I remember correctly. But what we did, here's your front axle mount. There's the cradle for it. Same way on the other side. Of course, we've got the skid plate off of it too. So you've got those two in the front, and I believe that's an 18mm socket and a wrench. And then on the driver's side, you've got the bolt that holds the differential mount right there. And then on the passenger side, same thing there. There's a bolt there. The nuts on the back side of these rear bolts are welded on, so you just zip the bolt out with your impact. Anyway, what we did, we just took those 4 bolts out, and the only thing about the front, the bolts came in from this direction. Of course, we took the nuts off. Bolt won't come out because it hits the lower control arm. So what we did, we took the nut off, slid the bolt out to the side here, and we cut the heads off on both sides, and then pulled the remainder of the bolt out. And then when we go back together, we'll just, of course, put the bolts in from this side. We got new bolts, so that's how to do that. And we just set the differential on my floor jack, and we lowered it, and it sets. It's setting on the jack right there, and of course there's a cross member back here that sets on, kind of rests on it also. We didn't remove the axles. We didn't take the drive shaft, front drive shaft out of it or anything. We left all that intact. That's all we did, is unbolt the 4 differential axle bolts and lower that down. And we tried to take it out the driver's side first, and we got it out through this area here, but the top of the rack was hitting on the suspension right here. So anyway, we slid it out through the passenger side through this area right there, and it came out fairly easy. So it wasn't as bad a job as we thought it was going to be. He does have a lift kit on this, so I don't know if the stock vehicle would be any different or not. He's got longer springs on it, control arms. So here, I don't know if a stock vehicle would be the same as this one is or not to remove it. That's all I can think of. It wasn't too bad of a job after we figured out how to do it. And I looked, even looked on AutoZone's repair help, and it said to remove the whole front axle. So this is a piece of cake compared to what the instructions are telling you how to do it. So anyway, I believe that's it. Thanks for watching, and have fun if you have to do this job.